Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai Stock Market Live streams. I hope everybody had a great weekend and is ready for the week ahead. We have a big event this week, the moment everybody's been waiting for in the markets, where the Fed looks like they will be cutting rates this Wednesday. So George and I will go through what we expect to happen during that event. We will actually be back live pretty much during it, right after the decision is announced. It's going to be announced 2 p.m. on Wednesday, and then Jerome Powell will be speaking at 2:30, and we will be live at 3 p.m. on Wednesday Eastern Time. So everybody, if you're watching this live or on the run back, make sure you tune back in Wednesday at 3 p.m. so you can see that. Sure to be an epic stream, and I'm sure the market will be making some pretty major moves on Wednesday, so it's going to be a fun one. But welcome on in. Hit that like button if you're an OG viewer or it's your first time and you're excited for some of the topics. I'm going to take you all through them now, and then when George gets in here, we will go into them in detail. But like I said, we'll talk about the FOMC meeting, what the Fed decides to do. We're also going to talk about briefly this thing that's being floated around today about companies possibly not reporting on a quarterly basis going forward. We'll see how much George thinks that's a likelihood or not. Then we have to get into NVIDIA, which came under scrutiny from China today for an anti-monopoly case, and they were down. And I want to check now to see if they are still down here currently. They're down 1.5% today, but they were down as much as 3%, so a little bit off the lows of the day. But we got to dive into this, see how much of a problem this will actually be for NVIDIA going forward, or if it's going to be something that's going to be short-lived and they can bounce back from it quickly. Then we have to get into Tesla stock, which I will check as well, because they were making a major move upwards, though, today after it was announced that Elon Musk bought $1 billion worth of shares on the open market. And Tesla is still up around, pushing up towards 7%. So it's around $420 per share. Elon's been tweeting about that already today, but Tesla was actually looking very good in our signals. And George, if you get our Sunday newsletters, you probably saw he has it added. So we'll get into Tesla stock. If it can keep rallying from here, now getting closer to those all-time highs it was hitting at the end of last year. Can Tesla hit that $500 mark that a lot of people are looking out for by the end of this year? Then we're going to talk about China stocks more, because we've had Alibaba, Baidu, JD.com all popping onto our short-term bull list in recent days and weeks. And a lot of these stocks have been rallying. And there was a TikTok deal supposedly agreed to, at least a framework for it. And Trump and Xi Jinping are set to meet on Friday. So with it seemingly going well with the USA and China relationship, can these stocks really bounce back after the announcements from that meeting are told to the market? We're seeing them move up already in recent weeks. Then getting back into Opendoor, they hired the ex-Shopify COO, and the stock is absolutely soaring. It was over $10 per share. It's just making a crazy move and super volatile. But so in the last week alone, Opendoor is up 54%, and that's after in the last 3 months, it's up over 1,500%. And a lot of people on social media are saying this company can be the next Carvana. So I want to ask George, does he see the resemblance to Opendoor and Carvana? Because Carvana was actually one of the stocks that got absolutely wrecked in the bear market we had a few years ago, but now has recovered to its all-time highs and then some. So maybe it is a bit of a good comparison between Opendoor and Carvana. Then we have a few topics that we didn't get to on Friday that some of our viewers wanted us to bring back up. So we will get to those as well. Talking about the full self-driving. We have Amazon, Google, and Tesla as the big three right now. How do we think they will stack up long term? I think most people believe Tesla is in the leading position right now. Does George believe that will remain the case? And how would he rank those three in terms of like the market share and just over time? What does he expect from all of them? Then we have to get into the Bitcoin miners. I had some of these written down from last week of the share prices movements of Iron, Hut, Riot, Cypher. I saw Bitfarms has been rocketing now, and so has Hive. So these stocks are making crazy moves. And I'm wondering if it has to do with the crypto aspect of their business, or if it's more of these AI data center um, type valuations that we're seeing go into these stocks now, and maybe some of them will transition from like crypto companies to more AI data center companies. They have all the computing in place already, so we'll get into that as well, and a little bit of IonQ because they were hitting their all-time high as well. Let me check them today. I believe they were up again. Yes, up 4%, approaching $60 per share at 58 currently, and breaking out. And we were covering IonQ, I feel like probably before most people in the financial world, because they were looking great in our signals before they even made this huge breakout. So always love to bring them back up, see how they're looking in the signals now, and if we could get any read on them going forward. That's all the topics we're going to be discussing today before we go into the model portfolio update at the end of the stream. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment them in the live chat on X or YouTube. We are happy to get into all of them. So, don't hold back. We'd like to address your most pressing concerns of, whether it's a single stock, macro, AI, whatever you have questions about. We're happy to discuss. Let me take a look at the net option sentiment for SPY and QQQ in the Prospero app right now. And we'll also take a look at the markets to get an actual track of, what's interesting today. Actually, I'm looking at the markets now. So we have the QQQ up 2/3%, SPY up 0.5%, Russell up 2/3, Dow up 1/4%. So everything is in the green, but the VIX is also up over 3% today, which is a bit unusual. Typically, if the market is going up in the green, the VIX will be red. So maybe a little bit of skepticism of the rally and people preparing for possibly maybe a negative mood for the FOMC. So we'll have to ask George about that. But let's look at the SPY and QQQ now. So we have the SPY at 16 and the QQQ at 31. So a similar breakdown of where we've been at most of the year, where the QQQ has been higher. A little bit, I'd say QQQ at 31, SPY 16 is slightly higher levels than most of the time we've been at recently. Although I think QQQ got above our 40 line recently for a brief moment. Yeah, just for like a day or two, it popped above it. But wow, you look at the time series graph in the Prospero app for net option sentiment of QQQ, and it's just like a straight up and to the right line. It has been some rally since for basically the entire month of September now, just up and to the right. Wow, that's crazy. Let me look at the SPY too if it's similar. Yeah, basically the same chart. Interesting. Um, so maybe people are just like kind of buying time and waiting for this meeting on Wednesday, and we're just kind of melting higher. Let me look around the markets and see if there's any major moves going on in the mega cap stocks. I know Google has been absolutely on a tear as well. We have Apple, Amazon, Google all in the green. Meta, Microsoft in the green as well. Tesla in the green. Nvidia is the only Mag 7 in the red right now. I was interested to see if Meta today would be red off the news that the TikTok deal is looking like it's gonna be done, but I guess maybe the market was expecting it already. Meta is in the green today, so not being affected by that story right now. See if there's any other major moves happening at the moment. I think I saw Oklo was up pretty big today. Yeah, Oklo up almost 10% today, also hitting all-time highs, over $90 per share right now. What a crazy stock, up 326% this year alone. Let's see in Prospero app how Oklo is looking. I know it's had some strong signals. Oklo, 95 net option sentiment, 87 upside. Oh my gosh. The Oklo short-term signals in the Prospero app. If you have the app downloaded, look at them right now. Everything is maxed out. Like the lowest signal is 82 level for dark pool. That's crazy. The whole entire graph is basically purple. Wow. So people are betting big on Oklo, it looks like. That's insane. I would like to see if you looked up in Prospero, because George can like make these screeners. if you added all of those 5 signals together, like, I feel like Aklo has to be 50 to 100 points higher than the next closest stock. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can leave a comment if you know another stock that has signals like that, but that looks wild right now. So people are betting big on them. Let's see any other big moves going on right now. Let's take a look at crypto, Bitcoin. Let's see. Bitcoin is currently in the red right now, down 0.8%. Bitcoin has not really, I feel like, rallied with the overall market, which is weird because, when it seems like when it's risk on, Bitcoin is like even the more risk on asset. Like if it's risk on, Bitcoin seems to outperform, but it has not had the same rally recently. And even maybe gold has been the reason why Bitcoin hasn't been rallying. The gold rally has been taking from the Bitcoin rally, possibly. People are, if they would have been investing in Bitcoin, maybe they're buying up gold right now with that momentum that we've been seeing. Um, but we're just waiting for George to get on it in here. 11-11, everybody, make a wish. I think we all wish that the market will continue going up in the green, probably, right? I mean, unless you're maybe not George, he's positioned pretty neutral. IHRT up 14% today from Nick Chuchawat. Let's take a look at IHRT. I feel like that's a bear pick in our signals, right? I think I remember them being looking pretty bearish. Yeah, 39 net 39 upside, 43 downside, 22 net options. So iHeart maybe making any news on that, Nick, or just kind of I'm new to how do you spell a cloud? I'm not sure, Russ Adonias, what you're asking exactly. Welcome to the Prospero Lives, though. If it's your first time, I see you're saying you're new. Oh my gosh, Russ, you're up late. I guess it tells me the time that where you're tuning in from. It says 3:19 a.m. for you. So thank you for staying up late or early with us. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today.
I am sorry, yeah.
No worries.
My computer decided that it needed to update before it would allow me access to the internet. Um, yeah, Nick, I'm pretty puzzled by what's going on with iHeart. It's low in net option sentiment. Um, and it's going way above, its recent highs. Like one of the things we're getting a lot more attention. One of the things that I can't rule out, and you have to be willing to evolve like this, is some people are buying the stocks that we short. Um, it's if you look at it, and one of the things that gave me comfort in continuing to go in. I always look at these other things. If you look at their price target, the average price target is $1.57, and the max is $1.90. So this is going way beyond where analysts see value. It could be, it could just be momentum, right? You never know. I don't know. I also look at like sentiment. It doesn't look like much of a short squeeze category, like 39 net social. So it's pretty odd. Normally, normally I'd be shorting it more in this situation, but it's so weird that I'm actually probably closer to looking for an exit. But at this point, I got to hold longer just because there's a little gap up, but it's just without any news, you got to think it's going to correct. But yeah, I apologize for the delay today, everyone. I just have to send the stream out to a couple people, and then we'll dive in to everything that is not iHeartRadio, which is annoying because we're like treading water today. It would be really a lot. We'd be a lot up if it wasn't for this odd iHeartRadio.
One stock I also want you to look at. It wasn't one of my topics, but we were just looking at stocks in Prospero. Is Oklo, which is up 10% today, but their short-term signals in our app, it's like absolutely maxed out. It looks like just a purple, what is the shape? Hectagon? um, but yeah, it's like everything, the lowest signal is 82 for dark pool, and everything is just looking super, like, I guess they're getting a lot of bets at the current moment, but uh yeah, it's a wild looking signal in Prospero.
I am almost ready. Okay, let's uh let's dive in. Normal topics, or you want to look at Oklo first?
Let's just look at Oklo briefly, um, and then we'll dive into normal.
Yeah, wow. I've never seen anything like that. It's pretty much just a full pentagon. Um, I mean, Oklo is one of those really tough ones. I look at it like pretty similar to Palantir, where it's just like it's going far beyond valuation expectations. Well, I guess it's like it's still below its max price target of 92. Um, but I think a lot of that is from a friendly legislative environment, right? And that's hard, when that's the case, it's hard to say um, what fair value is. But I'd really like, even without like, I'd worry about jumping into Oklo at these levels, partly because the short pressure is so high.
That was kind of just one follow-up. I was gonna ask you, like, when you see it maxed out, I think some people might correlate that with being, like, maximally bullish, but that just means, like, max volatility, right? Like, it could go 'cause since you see the high short pressure, the high dark pool, like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's fully in the bullish direction. It could go either way, volatility-wise, or no?
No, I mean, short pressure doesn't mean that just means it could have a short squeeze, right? It doesn't mean it's a stable stock. In fact, it means it's quite unstable, right? Because when something has that much short pressure, it means it's got a lot of money behind the shorts, right? And those shorts could win. Like, I'd actually much rather see a stock at an all-time high with low short pressure, because that means the broader market sees that price is valid. So the dark pool, like we've talked about, can be more of a bull signal than a bear. Like that I'm less concerned about it being high on a run up, because it can really go either way. But that short pressure, along with how much it's run, is what would run up is what would make me hesitant.
So the event of the week, the FOMC meeting, the rate decision is going to come out this Wednesday. So we'll be back live basically just after it is revealed to the markets what's going on. So it's going to be a fun stream Wednesday, 3 p.m. But how are you feeling going into it? We've seen this melt up rally. If you look at the time series graph for QQQ and SPY and Prospero, it's basically like straight up and to the right. Like there's been no dips recently in September, kind of just melting up into this meeting. Does that give you more confidence? Or is it kind of setting up where it could be maybe a sell the news event where every kind of bullish aspect of this story is getting priced in beforehand? And then I have kind of like building on that thesis. So the Fed is concerned with the job market and inflation. So if they want to address both at this meeting, maybe they cut rates to boost the economy for the job market, but maybe Jerome Powell speaks a little hawkishly to kind of damper the inflation. Do you see that being a possibility?
I'm a lot more worried about um about sell on the news for large caps. That's why I've been um talking about small caps, cycling into them more. I mean, I should have got out of iHeart too. That would have been that. But I was like, for once, I was 2-1 on small caps, long to short, which is not typically like we typically lean on smaller cap shorts a bit more. So that was a change. But the mystery of iHeart Radio will continue. Um, in terms of uh, in terms of small caps, I just feel like they have more room to run up than the large caps. Like we're seeing this rebound just because I think there's relatively value there. I think there's a lot more direct positive impacts to rate cuts. We talked about one of them, just like the ability to refinance and that having a bigger um, impact on the bottom line. but like especially also for these for small caps, but especially for these small caps, um, especially ones with retail attention. Retail, for whatever reason, got it in their head that dilution is bad, and especially for a company that, like, we pick on AMC a lot, but I'll pick on them again. Especially a company that needs to dilute to pay off their debt. That's a big problem. But dilution isn't necessarily a problem. If you're just doing it to grow, right? And you get good ROI on that dilution. But nonetheless, I think a lot of smaller companies are scared to dilute because of the way retail does it. That's all to say, there might be growth opportunities in lower debt for these small caps that, I would say debt financing is reacted to more positively, but it's not attractive in higher rate interest rate environments. So that's where I think the right way to play these things I think is or to play the event is, because I think it could be buyer in the news or it could be an extension, right? It's very hard. It's sell in the news or it could be an extension. Right now, we're sort of in a market where I think, negative. Why we've been more hedged is I've seen stronger reactions to negative news downward, but also positive news upward. So that's a hard situation. But I would call what is ultimately a cut positive news. And if I think about how hawkish Powell could be, I just think the labor markets have started to see enough problems that I don't see him pouring enough cold water on further hikes that we'll see a hawkish event in there, right? It could still be selling the news. And I'd be especially worried about tech companies that have run up, but we're already seeing kind of like, I think some of this is news around China today, but we're already seeing I think we're already seeing some softening in, kind of the larger chip makers. I would say chips AI, like those that have been on a run, I'm more concerned about that.
I see Saucepot is in our chat asking, is the trade alert feature dropping today?
So we're still collecting the names, obviously. We have to give sometime this afternoon, we're going to give one last warning. We did it in the newsletter, but we got to give the people that have invested in the crowd fund, one last warning that we'll probably give them for 24 hours. But right now we're looking at, that warning, and then over, kind of getting them in overnight Tuesday. Looking at Wednesday right now. We've said, we're saying this week, right? We're collecting everything. We keep guiding towards this week because I think that's a timeline I'm confident in. Whether or not, like, they go out exactly Wednesday. We just want to make sure we got to do some tests when we add people that the alerts are still firing correctly in some of these tests. Because right now we've only tested it in a small population for obvious reasons. So we're going to be running some tests. I think this week is still, that for that live, but your free alerts timer will only start the day that you have access, the alerts are properly firing.
All right, so hopefully that's the answer you were looking for, Saucepot. But I want to spin to NVIDIA now because they are not moving like most of the market today, which is in the green. They are in the red after it came out that China is going after them for an anti-monopoly violation of the acquisition of Mellanox in 2020. And NVIDIA was down as much as 3% this morning. They're kind of coming back a bit from it now. They're down about 1.5%. But does this China pressure on NVIDIA, does it concern you for the long run? Is it kind of like just a short-term event that you think NVIDIA will be able to overcome? Does it signal that, I feel like this latest NVIDIA rally has been the access to the China market. So if that comes into question, does that really mess with NVIDIA stock going forward?
I think if this was just more like smoke bluster, it would be one thing. I think the bigger news, and we're basically seeing, Baidu and Alibaba run on this. They're talking about having their own chips, right? And I think that that's bigger news, but I think that's adjacent to this, right? I definitely think whether or not the chips perform as well as NVIDIA chips, I think with all of this instability trade instability, I think China is probably just much more seriously planning an infrastructure shift, right? And remember, we talk about this with NVIDIA all the time, right? Existing systems that have NVIDIA infrastructure and use CUDA software, they they don't communicate with other things. So you basically have to be planning, be preparing for entirely new server farms that don't use any NVIDIA chips. And I think China's doing that. I mean, I think that was always in their interest. But I think when there was less, you might call it trade instability. I think while it was in their interest, they weren't going to take any performance hits um, in order to do that. And I think the performance is catching up, not quickly, but I think the performance is catching up, and the instability risk of dealing with our government and their new trade policies, I think is much more relevant to them now.
So you mentioned Baba and Baidu, and they've been kind of on our short-term bull list on and off, but having strong signals in Prospero. There is a meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping on Friday. Do you think these stocks can run even more after that meeting takes place, or is that a risk that that meeting goes south? How are you feeling about those stocks? Just not so much like in the day to day, but more so like can they run for the next weeks, months from here?
I think they have more room, right? I don't. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know what's going to be conclusive coming out of that meeting, right? Because I think some of these things are already structural, right? I think what we're seeing is more and more signs that they are moving away. Um, and I think, why would you notify shareholders of that? Because maybe there's going to be performance declines, right? Or more expense to run more compute in the short term. That's why Baidu and Baba would be like laying the foundations for that. But I mean, I think the market could react um, strongly to announcements out of it, but I think it's not going to change. I think, to be very specific, Alibaba and Baidu, I don't think they're changing their strategy that much. I don't think Nvidia is changing their strategy much off of this. So anything structural, um, I think it's kind of I can't see strong structural things that would be like, oh, I think that really changes the landscape coming out of this. Could there be news events that move it one way or the other? Absolutely. And I think people have to be prepared for that. But I think we're definitely going in a direction of more separation between us and China and our trade relations. Um, and I think we're driving that. And I think they're planning around that. But one of the things we talk about for this is they have to take a more defensive trading strategy right now. And I think ultimately that is going to hurt both countries in terms of efficiency, whether or not um, they're able to catch up enough on compute speed where we see it impact the bottom line of these companies that use a lot of compute, whether or not we build enough manufacturing longer term that it's worth it for our macro economy. Those are things that we don't know right now, but I think we can definitively say in the short term it's definitely going to have I would say more negatives for both countries. And then also there's going to continue to be strong reactions to these stories.
So last thing in this area of the market, it was announced today that the US and China have come to an agreement on a framework for a deal for TikTok. And we've kind of chatted about this recently on the streams. Like, we don't even know when the deadline is. It was September 17th, this current one. So it was coming up. But the details of the deal haven't been announced. Just the framework has been agreed upon. And I was curious to see if Meta would react to this negatively, but not the case. I guess the market kind of had figured this was gonna get done at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's been priced in for a while. I think the big change is I think people know that Trump is serious about this stuff, right? And whether or not that's just putting a hurt on TikTok for a month or whatever. Um, I think nobody I think TikTok's management is probably pretty serious about this and imploring the Chinese government. I'm sure they'll figure out workarounds to continue to spy on us. It's probably just not their ideal spying situation with this new setup, but who knows? Maybe their willingness shows they've already got a workaround on the spying. But yeah, I mean, I think for a while the market this is all priced in. I think it falling apart would mean very good things for Meta stock, but I think it's largely priced in that the deal's happening.
Well, they've certainly had enough time to work on workarounds I mean, this was we're now in September, the month 9 of the year. This was like a January story, so it's been a while. But we have to move on to Tesla stock, which is making a big move today. Let's see if they're still up. We checked at the beginning of the stream, they were up 6.5%. Let's see if it is still the case. Yes, it looks like it, about the same. So the story that made Tesla stock react bullishly was that Elon Musk has purchased $1 billion worth of shares on the open market as of last Friday. And interesting, because Tesla has been looking bullish in our signals, in our newsletter that was sent out yesterday. It's one of the bull picks. How are you feeling about Tesla stock now that we've seen it really? It seems like every micro dip, if you look at like the stocks chart, it just gets bought up, and now it's approaching those all-time highs again. So it looks like there's a lot of momentum there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I see it at net option sentiment of 71, which like typically in prior like years I would say that that's low for it. But we'll be a little patient since it's been on such a nice run, but it's also like one of the things that gives us comfort. It's also been at 100 upside for a long time. I mean, that's a that'll be an interesting graph. I should put it together at some point. That shows just how confident the market's been in the long-term value of Tesla, even if there's this short-term worries, and I mean I think that's because of their robotics play, and it's interesting, even though the Trump and Elon relationship seems to have largely fallen apart. I thought some of the way this was being priced was on a good relationship between them. But yeah, there just continues to be a lot of bullishness. I think a lot of faith in Elon Musk. I think they've largely passed the Musk boycott. I mean, I think what was going to happen in Europe, what was going to happen in Europe. But I think they're largely to the other side of that. But I'm still going to be watching. I don't really like that move down in net option sentiment. If it goes any lower, I'll probably get out with my profits.
I'm curious because I feel like we're in a period where there's a lot of insider selling overall in the markets. Is this like a nice like 40 chess move from Elon? Like, do you think he's actually buying these shares because he like thinks it's so undervalued and he needs more shares? Like, obviously he's got hundreds of billions of dollars. Or is it more of like the marketing and the confidence boost and it's like the managing of the company that's really like a great move for him to just show the market what he feels about the future and the potential of Tesla?
Yeah, I mean it's smart, right? When you have as much money as he does, like you could buy you could buy $1 billion of stock on a Friday, right? And I think that you know, I think we don't know the answer to that, right? Because it's such an insignificant amount to him. But what I will say is I think he continues to be very adept at managing investor sentiment, right? And I think this is just another I think it's a good move regardless. Like you said, he's already got so much Tesla exposure. What is another billion? And if to your point, he thinks it can stand out. I mean, let's take another step back, right? I think he's bullish on Tesla, right? He's very bullish on Tesla. I think there's some people that bullshit themselves, and he might be one of them, but it doesn't matter. I think he has complete faith in his ability to make Tesla the most valuable company in the world, right? So I don't think he's saying oh, do I like it at this price? Like more, no. I think he's probably just saying, is this a good time for me to buy in terms of what it can do for the price action around it, increase this momentum, right? It's also been at 100 technical flow for a little bit, right? I think I think it doesn't get that far with him. I think he probably just, and it might not even be him. It might be one of his, might be one of his advisors that that watch the stock well, or some fund that it's just like, that is a big shareholder that's just like, hey, if you bought some now, I think it could really, amplify this rally. I don't think it's going any further than that. And the more I talk about it, the more it almost has to be that, right? Because it's not like like the good time to buy for price would have been a month ago, 2 months ago now, right? Now, the only reason to buy really is to amplify the rally.
The reason I asked that a little bit is because I'm wondering if other CEOs will see the reaction from Tesla and try and do the same thing, and if that'll work, or if there's a different relationship that Musk has with investors in the market than most other CEOs do, where it wouldn't work for them as much if they tried.
I think it would work for, like, I think it would for, like, I think CEOs tend to know this, right? All of them know that them buying is going to be react to the stock. But I think that's the difference. I think a lot of CEOs care more about getting it at that really good price. And I think the market is kind of inflated now. Most CEOs are just worrying about, taking their profits and before the stock goes down 20%, then, catalyzing a rally. And I think that's like probably the different way that he thinks versus a lot of other people. Like, and there's no right way, right? Like, I think Jensen Wong, for example, we always talk about, very good at managing stories, right? I think, you know, he's very good at, catalyzing a stock um, with news events, right? He doesn't necessarily need to have like stock purchases. I think Nvidia tends to, they announce their buybacks, they do it as a company. That's different as personally, but I think people will think about it more. I just think the best way to say it is, I think Elon Musk's like action set of what he's willing to do and try is just much larger than other CEOs. And I think, for the most part, that benefits him. We've seen it not benefit him, right? But I would say over a longer time scale, you'd have to say that wider action set has gotten him a lot more upside than downside.
So we have to stick with Tesla and the full self-driving side of the story because we couldn't get to this story on Friday, but our chat wanted us to talk about it. So bringing it back up, Amazon Zoox launched in Las Vegas. So now we officially have the big three, Tesla, Google, and Amazon, all having active products on the market for full self-driving. The question I was going to ask you was just, how do you see those three in positioning now and long term? And then market share, do you think one will dominate? Will they all eventually be like splitting the market? Do you see any other potential people coming into that big three, maybe make a big four, big five, and just all the questions around the full self-driving industry?
Um, I think some of it is going to be, for lack of a better word, luck, right? I think um I think that there's a wide set of possibilities in terms of, human error or robot error causing an accident, right? And I think there's going to be, you know, however much you want to assign probabilities to that, but some stupid person can run out in front of a car and there's not a whole lot that the car can do about it, right? Just like there's not a whole lot that a person can do about it sometimes. Or like I'm sure there's going to be cases of someone just like crashing in to a self-driving car and them being angry and, wanting the robot to be blamed for it, because you see a lot of that, right? So there's going to be some degree of luck. I think people are going to be very sensitive to headlines. People are going to be very sensitive to, like, I think even if someone runs out in front of a self-driving car and the car kills them, right? I think even if that self-driving car is not at fault, right? Theoretically, it could do something. We're not going to get into that. I just think there's some degree of it that's luck, right? And I think some of what ultimately catches on is going to be just who builds the best story around safety, right? Then you have a component. And by the way, I think if you're just looking at all of them equally, right? I would think Tesla probably has to have the cleanest record because of how polarizing they are, right? Especially if it's, say, in California. And I think, Gavin Newsom seems to be wanting to make a lot of points about conservatives these days, right? I don't think that will go very well for Tesla there. If there is an accident. But like on the other side, we've also seen Elon Musk manage legislation as well. Like one of the things we point out is like, getting Teslas sold direct to consumers was something that, cars were not sold that way until like for a long, long time until he broke through that. So there's actually some evidence of the other portion of it, which is an ability to roll out these cars. Because some of it is just proof point getting there and showing that, like, getting the data that they're safer than humans, which at the end of the day is, I think, at the beginning, people are going to be very sensitive to headlines, but at the end of the day, I think that's going to be the important proof point. Are they more safe than humans on longer timescales? And I think those are the main, but like, they're cheap. A lot are going to compete on price. Like, I think that's really the two things that are going to make it go. And obviously we talked about one of them is purely luck. And I think disadvantages Tesla, as I said. The other one is, is much more in control. And I think it kind of balances out the overall picture there. I will say this in terms of safety. I think Google is the best, like their car, I think, is in the best position to execute on safety, but it's also the most expensive, and that'll hurt scale, right? So it's kind of, that's another interesting point where it's like the safety ultimately will help the story, but the cost will, hurt its ability to scale in price effective ways. Although I don't think Google really minds having it be a loss leader there. All that being said, I think ultimately, much like Lyft and Uber, there'll be at least two, if not more, that are quite prevalent. I think in this situation, it's going to be harder for smaller cars to compete because of the safety burden. In terms of just the idea that, like, a lot of the times to offer lower prices on, say, rides, you have to cut some corners in, say, software, and self-driving cars are not a good place to cut corners on software. But it's not out of the question. The other thing is, as these models training sets perhaps become more and more, prevalent, easy to access, maybe there's a government disclosure portion where you really have to share some of these for, maybe for safety records, but other people can basically absorb the training set there. I don't really see smaller providers not competing, but I don't think we've heard, say, the last from Uber on this. For example, they might just be waiting for other people to do the tough parts before they're prepared to deploy. But yeah, I think it's going to be, a large, like, regardless, it's going to be a large company that executes on this. I don't really see a startup coming in.
Interesting. I want to bring up Open Door today as well on the stream. They hit their high last Friday. They're a little bit lower than that now, but they went up to around $10.50 per share. And the reason they were rallying was because they've now made a change. They're hiring the ex-Shopify COO as their new CEO. And it's the first time I've heard that they are now comparing themselves to Carvana as what they want to be. So, and it's an interesting comparison when you look at like how Carvana, not even like the business, but the stock was in the markets where it rallied insanely back in 2021, and then with the bear market, it dropped 99%, and now is fully reclaimed to reach new all-time high again. And Open Door wants to emulate that, and instead of cars, they want to do it with homes. So, do you think that's a good comparison? And does this new hire of someone who's proven take Open Door of less of a meme stock now and more of maybe an actual, real like business, growth business?
Yeah, I mean, I actually like. I see more than anything the parallel in business model, right? They're really trying to simplify things. Now it's hard for me to really comment on Open Door because I've never used the product, right? Like, I don't know, there's some things like, escrow and expections and other things like that that are there for good reason. I don't know that the edge case, I don't know about the edge cases that might be really bad. But uh yeah, I'm not really sure um about the quality of the product beyond the meme stock, right? But I do think everything, without knowing the details of how good the product is and if there's any holes in it or anything like that, um, I will say I think we're moving more towards online. We're moving towards simplicity. So unlike some other meme stocks that are just, not good companies, I do see this there being some meat to this, just like there was some meat to Carvana. And hey, I mean, the best way you can really attack a new market is having access to cheap capital. And if your stock price is moving in a really good direction that gets you like relatively cheap capital for your earnings, that's a really really good way to grow. As good as any, really. Um, debt financing is just not as strong as equity financing, especially if you can bring in um a high valuation relative to your growth level. So yeah, I think that I think that it's definitely an interesting stock, but one that I probably should have held it from when I first had it, because it was interesting. It did look good in the signals, but you don't know what these meme stocks, the life that they have in them. And that's the same thing for me now. Like, I could easily see it being down 20 or 30% in the next month. And that's always or up that or more, right? And that's always my barometer when I talk about something like Bitcoin and why we haven't owned that, more, even though I think, Amazon, Bitcoin over the next 10 years, I think they're great, great, great things to own as much as you can. But, differently than Amazon. Like Amazon, I worry about the upside with Amazon at any given time because it's always priced pretty aggressively. But with Bitcoin and just like with Open Door, I have a hard time wrapping my head around something that I think could go down 30% in the next month or more, right? And the stocks that we add, we tend to have a strong conviction that they're not going to go down that much. And also we're going to get clear signaling and time, right? Like, if we own Tesla right now, and I could say it's certainly possible for it to go down more than 20-30% the next month. But like I said, I think we would have time. That's not going to happen in an afternoon of trading in the same way that I think it could happen for Open Door.
So another
So we'll
stock moving bigly recently is IonQ again. After they had an analyst day last week, they are now up to $58 per share, up 38% in the past week, up 650% in the past year. And I love bringing IonQ back up because I feel like we were talking about them before most people because they were looking good in the signals. I wanted to kind of take a peek back at them in Prospero, but then also just ask you, like, with the stock hitting all-time highs, now the market cap is up to over 17 billion. Is the stock getting ahead of the actual business at all, or is the excitement for the company justified with the future growth and industry that we're expecting from quantum?
Yeah, I'd say almost definitely it's getting ahead, but we're in like it's been that way and it keeps running, right? But we're in that like market, right? That getting like almost everything's getting ahead. Now, I will say its net option sentiment is down to 60, right? So that's the kind of like softening that worries us. Um, but yeah, like um I think that we're kind of entering this time with rate cuts coming where I think it's fair to expect a lot of these stocks to continue to beat their all-time highs as long as the market stays, positive. And that's a big, like, we're now breaking a lot of rules in terms of how many all-time highs we've had without like a at least a decent correction. So that could happen at any time. And I think, given how news driven it is on both sides. I think it is going to be news driven, and I think that's the tough thing. What we've started to expose our portfolio to, right, in terms of diversification, prioritizing small caps. A lot of how I look at that, again, are stocks that I think are more insulated from these big losses. And what we're going to say with IonQ, I think, is very similar to what we said with Open Door, which is just that, like, I look at it very similarly as a stock that, any of the quantum things could be down 20% easily in the next month. So we're trying, and that could happen quickly, right? We're trying to get into stocks that we don't like. Yes, they might go down in a correction, but they're not going to have the bottom fall out of them because there's, I think, a little more, you might call it profitability meat to their story.
You talked a little bit about the environment of the market that we're in. Do you think for these stocks, what's more important, like anything to do with like the business specific, the company specific news or earnings or anything like that? Or is it purely more like the risk on versus risk off of the market? Like if one of those were to change, which would affect these type of stocks more uh, at the moment?
Well, I think there's a lot of overlap. And I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to locate as much as possible stocks that can perform well in a risk on environment, but we think have more buying support, institutional buying support, retail buying support in downswings.
Okay. So we have one more topic to go through today. We've had over 2,000 people tuning into the stream already. So thank you all. Hopefully you enjoyed our topics already and you're following us on X or subscribing on YouTube. We are approaching 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. So everybody help us out if you haven't subbed there yet. The countdown is on. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment them. But we'll get into this last topic here, which is another topic that we were going to bring up on Friday, but we didn't get to it. So Bitcoin mining stocks are rallying furiously recently. Iron is up over 74%, Hut, Riot, Cypher up over 50%. A lot of even other ones have recently joined in, like Bitfarms, Hive. They're just all ripping every day. Do you think this is more due to crypto and the crypto industry and the bullishness we've seen from the administration and the support, or because we've seen like stocks like Iron go more into like the AI side of things and being like data centers for that? Do you think the market is pricing that in for more of them since these companies have access to so much compute, they have the real estate, they have the facilities already? And do you think we will see more of a blending of the worlds for these companies where they're not purely Bitcoin, but they're also diving into AI? And which industry do you like more for these stocks at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the thought has occurred to me that I should be playing those, like especially a stock like Iron, which I should have held for longer because it has continued to look strong in our signals. But I think I should view stocks like that more as AI and Bitcoin plays versus or AI and crypto plays versus just crypto, right? Because MSTR has not. You look at an MSTR chart versus an Iron chart, and they do not look similar. So that tells you right there that there's a premium being placed on, I think, the idea that, having this computing capacity is good in any market going forward. And that, yeah, if the um, if the uh, if the perspective changes, right, around crypto or the prices fall and mining isn't there, there's other compute. Like there's not, we need an indefinite amount of compute that does lower the risk for these miners. So I think they should be viewed very differently. But again, it does get to the trouble where it's just like, okay, how much is valuation versus speculation? At that point, you still have the same kind of tough question there.
Now, I'm wondering if the shine of Bitcoin is kind of fading. We've seen the market rally, gold rallying to new highs, but Bitcoin in the past month is actually down 2%. I wonder if that's because people are getting nervous that these crypto miners will make the switch over to AI, and I'm not sure how that will affect the price of Bitcoin, but I can imagine if there's less demand, it won't be positive for it. And I'm wondering if that's a risk that's overhanging Bitcoin at the moment.
I am just looking. You said the net last month, Bitcoin was down 2%.
Yes.
I am just looking up Ethereum quickly. That's annoying. It doesn't tell me the
Ethereum's
change.
up 1%.
Yeah. See, so I mean, that was, I think that my thesis of, I think people are starting to diversify away. I saw just like a garbage ad that was fed to me today that was just hilarious. Where it was just like, this guy was like, um, this woman was interviewing him, and it wasn't an ad, and she was like, "Wait, so you're telling me that like by the time these coins get to like Kraken and Coinbase or whatever, it's like most of their gains are already gone, and there are these other cryptocurrencies that aren't quite listed on those big exchanges yet that you could get your 100x returns on." And she was like, I wouldn't even be listening to you if you weren't a CFA. Well, like the same, like CFA is the same like thing as like Robert Griffin, and like she named all these like famous investors. And it was just like, yeah, it was a very high production ad for shit coins. And I rarely comment on those kind of things, but I just was like, this is garbage. But it is relevant to this conversation, where I do think that like a lot of like the crypto pushers have like diversified, they've moved on. I think I think there's some truth to that shitty ad, in the sense that like I think less of the momentum, now that like Bitcoin is more mainstream, I think less of the momentum traders are going to be going into that. But again, that is where the miners um you know become a better diversified value. So it'll be interesting. I've long said, not only do you have cryptocurrency risk with Bitcoin, and when I recommend like BLOK, diversified blockchain, right? There will continue to be a risk that at the end of the day, maybe other coins like Bitcoin, I think is going to be, it's going to be a long time before it isn't the coin, right? But I think we might not be, I think we might only be seeing the beginning of, in these more risk on environments, Bitcoin's not going to run as much as these other coins. And um, I'm not advising you to buy shit coins, but I do think getting the miners, or doing what we always say, buying diversified blockchain like Block, or I don't know, like this is something to research. I think maybe like a diversified basket of shit coins I would recommend far over like one, especially if it's like a sharp, cryptocurrency person putting them together. But still, I'd prefer like diversified blockchains or miners over it.
Well, if it's going to be those altcoins, and I think they're calling it alt season, maybe just buy Coinbase or like the platform they're trading them on, right? And I also looked at Solana; it's up 25% in the past month. So you're definitely right about the turning away from Bitcoin, it appears, to other tokens at the moment.
We can't say shit coins anymore.
I mean, I'm
Is
just
that
not
not
much of a
politically correct? The shitcoin people are mad, and they demand to be called altcoin people.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Um,
Well, no, I mean that was actually the point of the ad. That like by the time something got to Coinbase, it was like you couldn't get a real return on it because everybody had found out about it, which is just like um, which is just hilarious. But I say don't take their labeling. They're shit coins and they deserve to be called shit coins. It doesn't mean you can't make money off of them. It's the same like penny stocks, right? It's the same concept, right? But they are shit coins. Nobody knows. Nobody knows where they're going to go, and nobody knows when the large holders are going to give up on them, or if the large holders are like what we say all the time, building up their short positions before they sell. Um,
Now, it
yeah.
is time to do the model portfolio switch over, but what I'm curious about, George, is the markets are still in the green. The Dow is slightly red at the moment, but the VIX is up 4% now today, which I think is curious and interesting with the markets being in the green, correct? Does that raise an eyebrow
Curious
for you?
indeed. But I no, I just think it's what we're saying. I think people are worried. Like as much as this is a bull market, right? One of the things that like, I actually had someone, talk about how like a buy and hold portfolio, was better, than long short right now. And I'm like, I agree with you. Like looking backwards, a buy and hold portfolio the last, month, and especially in, growth assets, risk assets, probably does beat shorting anything, right? But risk management is always the way to go. And that's how we've had consistent returns over the last 4 years. But what we are seeing a definite increase in, and why we've been cautious, right? We scaled down that caution a little bit this weekend, upped it to more, higher conviction stocks, because we do think that's a nice way to keep our philosophies while adapting to, what some of the user feedback was. But uh, what what people what I'd say I tend to see a lot better than the general retail investor, I'd say a lot better than a lot of people, including professionals, is, the suite of things that we've built that tell us how institutions are feeling in the options market. And right now, anyone that's looking at QQQ, SPY, and option sentiment can see that they're like, this VIX thing is not a surprise. They've been, very up and down on this, and sometimes down and up in the same day very sharply, right? So I think that tells you exactly where we started, that institutions are not quite sure if this is a sell on the news event or a big rally event. And I'd be very careful, because I could see it going one way and then the other way very quickly. So we will stay pretty neutral. We might even trim our portfolio going into that event to just expose us to a smaller number of stocks that might go every which way. But no, that is not surprising.
All right, so let's do the switch, and we'll catch you in the Prospero Lab. See the live picks that you're making. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Stick with us. George will be right back. And let's just take a look at the Prospero app one more time to see the net option sentiment levels. Now, I'm not sure. Yeah, I was wondering if George was meaning to end that camera. I'll take him. Oops, let me do something. Let me see if I can. There we go. We'll see if George tunes back in a moment. But we'll take a look at Prospero now. So I'm seeing SPY at 12 in net option sentiment and QQQ at 36. So we're continuing to see this separation in the two. QQQ is getting very close to the bull bear level of 40. I'm wondering if I'm going to ask George when he gets back in here if he thinks the bullish or bear level should be slightly lower, because we've seen, the market's been able to rally. Maybe I should even save this for Wednesday. It could be a good discussion. Yeah, I think I'll save it for Wednesday, because we've seen the markets, continue to rally with the signals looking a little bit bleak. So let me write that down now. I think will you guys enjoy that chat? Sorry, stick with me 1 second. All right. All right, I think we're going to talk about that Wednesday, after we talk about the FOMC decision, which is sure to be moving the markets bigly. Gilbert, you want to hear us chat about that? Okay, I thought so. I think that'll be a good chat. It's always good to understand the signals as best we can. So any questions around them to help us understand them, I feel like are beneficial for everybody. We're seeing not much of a difference in the QQQ SPY Dow Russell since we've been streaming here. The only difference really is the Dow is ever so slightly in the red, just down 0.02%, so barely right now. But the VIX is hitting a high of the day also, up 4.5% almost at 1540 for the VIX. So I think it's something to keep an eye on for the rest of the day if that action keeps going on with the VIX. Let's take a look at the markets. So we're still seeing Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla in the green. Let's see if Nvidia has gotten any kind of. Oh yes, Nvidia is. Oh wow, Nvidia actually went green at 11:55 about 10 minutes ago. They're slightly in the red now, but even Nvidia is fighting back today with the markets in the green. It's catching the bullish momentum. It's not scared of that China headline of that investigation, the antitrust. Let's see, we highlighted Oklo in the beginning. They're still up 8.5%. A lot of the smaller cap stocks that George was saying are up big today. So we'll see if George decides to even go further into the smaller caps. If you missed our discussion on that earlier and you're just tuning in recently, he was saying he has a bit more confidence in the smaller cap stocks with the rate cuts coming than the large cap stocks, which is a bit of a change from where we've been at for a while now. And the small cap stocks have been lagging for seemingly like a few years. Let's see actually the performance of the Russell over the past 5 years versus the other indices. Russell is up 58% in 5 years. Dow 64, QQQ 115, SPY 95. So it has lagged quite a bit. All right, George is back with us.
Yep, just checking
this.
a few things. Okay.
Ooh, my Prospero app just updated. We got a little tick lower in where the SPY and the QQQ was in net option sentiment. We're seeing 11 for the SPY and 29 for the QQQ.
Yeah. My internet is going a little slowly. I don't know why. But this is annoying. All right, I'm gonna restart my computer. I'll be right back. Maybe it's the same thing as the other computer.
Alrighty. Sorry for the tech troubles, everybody. Stick with us. Let's see. I like to hold our YouTube viewers accountable nowadays on these streams. We'll see how you guys are doing on that like button today so far. If any of you haven't liked yet, I'll give you guys a second to double tap the screen or hit that like button. Send the likes our way. Let's see how we're doing. I'm giving you guys a moment. I hope some people are liking it up. Let's see. Come on now. We're at 9. We didn't even hit double digits on this live stream today. Oh, there we go. We hit 10. So thank you. Thank you for that person that just liked the stream. We hit the double digit mark. All right. That's got to be the floor for us nowadays. We got to at least hit 10. So good to see that we hit that mark. You know, I don't hold our Twitter audience in line like I do the YouTube. So let me check out Twitter, see how that's, or X. I keep calling it Twitter. X. X, we have 10 likes as well. Okay. So YouTube and X are neck and neck today in terms of like totals. But we get a lot more views on X. I don't know what X does differently. I know George has some people like retweet the stream or whatever. But I feel like you get so much more reach on X for some reason. Like they continue to show people, which is cool. So if you're just discovering us on X, welcome. I think a lot of new people are brought into the Prospero community through that. YouTube should do something similar. But sorry for the hold up, everybody. What we're going to do, if it works, if George's Wi-Fi is working when he tunes back in, is make live changes to the Prospero model portfolio. So you get to see the adds and drops, long and short. So it is worth the wait if you are still here. So I appreciate it. If you have any questions in the meantime, while we're just sitting here excuse me, feel free to ask away while we're just buying time here. Are you guys excited for the FOMC meeting? I feel like we've been talking about this for months and months and months, maybe not so long, but at least for the last, like, probably since the beginning of August, we've been highlighting this meeting as everybody was expecting the rate cut. So, and now it's finally here. It is finally the week of the FOMC. Thank you to Nick and Mario and Saucepot and Gilbert and Russ, all leaving us live chat comments today. Dustin said, I just got here. What did I miss? Well, Dustin, do you have a treat for you? You can watch back the full stream. We covered a lot of topics today. We went into detail on Tesla, full self-driving, the Bitcoin mining stocks, NVIDIA, what else? Open Door, the FOMC meeting, so much. We covered a lot of topics today. It was a great day of streaming so far. Right now, Dustin, we're just waiting to see if George's computer will cooperate for him, seeming to have some internet troubles. No, oh, George is back. How's it looking on your end? Better?
Yeah. I don't know what's my internet today is been rather uncooperative. All right, but we are spinning everything up to update the model portfolio. Oh, up to 27% above the market. We've been on a nice little run with the model portfolio. All right. Substack is still being slow. Oh, maybe it was Substack. It was Substack all along. I thought it was my computer. It's just Substack that's decided it wants to go at a glacial speed. Anytime here, Substack. Here, everybody. We can all watch Substack decide it wants to not load. Here we go. Come on.
Another stock that's looked great in the signals, I feel like recently, was Unity. They're up 6% today again.
Oh, interesting.
Good to see the Prospero signals highlighting them.
Oh, here we go. We don't want this letter. Oh, come on. Not a great ad for Substack right now. Come on. You can do it. I don't really want to have to do this later, but I'm not going to make us all sit here while Substack struggles to load pages. Does anyone have any questions while we...
We did get one from ENT00X. How popular is Elon in the US? In Europe, everybody hates him.
I think... Here, let's take this off until... I think in the US it's a very mixed bag, right? I think you really have a lot of very very enthusiastic Elon. I mean, go to X and you'll see, like, obviously that's his company, but like overall the conversation on Elon is highly positive. I think I've heard a lot of a lot less anti-Elon stuff in the US, but I think that just kind of is like died down a little bit. Okay. Are you ready to actually work?
The venture into politics definitely just divided people on him for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean, and then he kind of had his little tiff with Trump, so I think even like the more hardcore Trump people like soured on him a little bit. So yeah, it has been interesting. All right. Oh, we'll do a little screener. Oh, we should have done that while we were waiting. Damn, that was dumb. All right, if we're waiting again, we're going straight to the screener. All right, finally in business. Something went wrong. God, just leave us alone. All right, we are going to oh, come on, Substack.
Growth is looking strong all around today, so we will look to add a few new names there, but not take on too many and add risk with the VIX up. Communications and consumer discretionary look like good bull ads, and we will look to healthcare on the bear side, as we know we've been getting some exposure there.
Adding some exposure, Stephen. It's a bit different. One is one's more about overall, but I'm trying to counteract a portfolio trend we've been exposing ourselves to. Okay. Not too much different, but a little. Let's see. We'll get this. Then we need this. And we need added micron. Oh, we've been in Bitey. That's nice.
Oh, that's a lot of wins. Good job to our long-term strategy here. Oh, we've had unity in this one too. Okay, come on. $40. Copy that. Oh. I've been screwed on VRT so many times. Like, we had some really good runs with it, and since then, it's just been a nightmare. I'll add it here because this is much more just like pure signal driven. But
Claire is in our chat asking about the alerts, which we did speak on in detail in the beginning of the stream, Claire, if you want to watch it in full. But it looks like a possible Wednesday or Thursday official launch.
yeah, I have to, after this, I have to make a last call on the crowd fund, and I'm going to give people 24 hours for that. Because we're still missing a decent number of people that did invest, and we don't really want to exclude them, but we don't really want to be adding people every day. That would be annoying. And people would be on different schedules. Like, we want it to be like roughly even, so we could track it well. But yeah, we're going to collect them, and then hopefully overnight Tuesday is when we add, and then you'll be notified via email, like, what to expect, things like that. And hopefully you get that Wednesday morning, but, might be Thursday. But we have been saying this week. We could do this. I'll just do all of these. Any healthcare. Oh, I wish we had a bit of a larger cap healthcare, but oh, here. All right, we'll do 2 of these small guys. I don't love that, but yeah, sure. Oh, we're adding a lot. Oh, I didn't do this first. I was just assuming we were going to be cutting a lot of shorts, which very well might be the case, but let's find out first. Okay. Oh, it's too many. Maybe we'll get rid of one of these. Can you, Steven, I don't know what's going on with these, but can you just tell me what net option sentiment is for them? Yeah, I'm just going to send them. I'll just send them to everybody. Hey, anyone can call it what net option sentiment is on these. Oh, why are you being like that? That's annoying. I'm just going to paste them in here. Do you see them, Steven?
Where'd you send them? In StreamYard?
Most of them, they're all on they're as a string. This would take longer than
this.
All right, I'm just going to check them. Actually, Steven, you go from the bottom. I'll go from the top.
Okay.
All right, SCL is still good. Sometimes it just takes less time to do it. Ooh, SFBS. See, at 55. There might be conflicts. Leave me alone.
We're confirming these net options are all still bearish looking?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because we're seeing NA and momentum score. SFBS. Did you?
NL and PR are looking bearish at the moment.
All right, so just do ESCA and then I'll do Kalu and we'll be done. Kaiser aluminum. Yeah, Kalu we're out of. Okay, good little check.
Wow, IIPR looks terrible. 96 downside, 0 upside, 4 net options. Yikes.
All right, we're staying in. All right, STRL. All right, we were right. Okay, so now we have 40 and there's 34, but we exited how many? Exited 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
Thank you, Nicole. She said, yes, we see it. ENT also said, time is the stream on Wednesday. It's going to be 3 p.m. EST.
Oh, damn. Airbnb. What is it doing today? That could be a good investing letter pick.
Airbnb is down 1 3/4%.
That's very bad numbers for it. I wonder what's behind that. All right. Let's get a little more Roblox. SNBS might be a nice rebound play. All right, that's all. That's all she wrote. Did we link to table? Yes, we did. All right. Oh, come on. Substack is. All right, what's SPY QQQ net option sentiment?
Let me check. SPY is 12, QQQ is 35.
Oh, God, no. Ah, there we go. This happens to me sometimes, and sometimes it takes me so long to figure out. All right, that's good. That's good. That's good. All right. There may be conflicts. Do we have two? All right, now we're just going to look at a few more things. We are going to see what's going on here. All right, these are all looking very healthy. I might want to get out of some of these later, but for now, viable. Oh no, did we send it? Oh, we did, but it's struggling. Jesus Christ. Get your act together. It's embarrassing. All right, let's see what we want to do for our screener, everybody.
Perhaps something small cap related? Are you thinking that?
Oh, yeah, but I don't think that's the best. No, I think we should do growth because it is a growth day. This is a new. Oh, look at that. Yeah, there's some definitely interest on Tempest.ai making a. All right, I definitely like this. Hut. A lot of interesting names here. Do people like when we do these screeners too, or is this we should just pack up and do our work outside of this?
Well, I heard you say Hut, and I thought how much the Giants disappointed me yesterday, so I can't say I enjoy it.
They didn't disappoint me. I don't hope for anything from them. And I'm actually in a very similar spot than I was with their last GM, Dave Gettleman, where I can't even in good I can't even in good conscience root for them anymore. I think they need to be fired. I think all of those I think all of their GM, the coach, they all need to be fired. So
Clean house, I'm with it.
yeah, so they got to lose to do that. So yeah, they have actually sucked the life out of me, even being able to root for them, which is only the Giants have ever done to me as a team. Normally I can see some benefit in wins, but they're just the owner is so bad. He literally needs he didn't even have a good reason for keeping on the coach and GM last year. They've gotten continuously worse. He talked about seeing progress. Anyway, we definitely don't need to bother everyone with how bad the Giants are. I am sending this, and we are done. Unless there's any more questions.
No more questions at the moment. What a stream. Thank you, everybody. If you stuck with us all the way, we're past the 90-minute mark now. So thank you, everybody. We will see you again Wednesday, 3 p.m. on FOMC Day. So it's going to be a fun stream. See everybody then. Thank you, George. Bye, guys.